AskGunQuestions.com is a website that we built back in 2007, and since then, for the last 15 years, people have been able to ask questions of simple to advanced nature, and we attempt to answer them in different ways over the years. Join us now as we start a new series to answer gun questions.
And welcome everybody to Ask Gun Questions. Today's special edition of Ask Gun Questions, we'll be looking back at some old magazines. So I usually invite Tony Simon and Clover. And Tony joining us today from New Jersey. Thanks for jumping in.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Always appreciate it.
And Clover said okay, so I don't know if that means okay, I'm never coming back again, or okay, I'll join in, but we'll find out if Clover joins us. We do this live on Saturdays. The idea is to bring some people together that have been around guns for a while and offer hopefully a different perspective or point of view on some of the questions that come in than you might get from other sources, or if not, then just be interesting or entertaining perhaps. So we do this live. Chris is joining us out there. Guns and Ammo is his go-to. So we have a poll going on the YouTube side. Or I guess we're only, we've got two channels going on the big channel. What's your favorite magazine from the 1980s? We have two of them here today, Soldier of Fortune and Survival Guide. Used to be American Survival Guide. I don't know, somewhere they changed the name. And then I put in here another title, make a comment with it, or for some reason you couldn't read in the 1980s. Some people, like my little co-host over here, probably wasn't born back in the 80s. So they weren't reading magazines. Other people weren't reading them. But if you were, feel free to comment. We've done this before. I'm sure we'll do it again. I'm a big fan of these. We were just talking off air about reading these things back in the day. Feel free to leave some comments about it. That's what it's all about. And like I said, there's a poll going. But with all that being said, what's been going on with in New Jersey?
Yeah, Jersey's its usual stupid place. But shoot, we're gonna be over at Union Hill Gun Club. CNJFO, which is a coalition of New Jersey firearms owners, actually has a fishing trip going out Sunday.
Is your fishing trips like Florida fishing trips because you can carry, or is it literally just because everybody likes to fish?
Oh, it's because everybody likes to fish just with CNJFO.
Okay.
It was raffled off and doing all that really cool stuff. They're going to be on a boat. They're in a boat. They go out for the day, and they fish off the coast, miles out. I decided that there was no way in heck I'm waking up at 3 o'clock on a Sunday to drive down to the shore to be on a fishing boat all day.
Have you ever done that before?
Oh, yeah. I've done it like 3 or 4 times for my old company. They used to have shop fishing trips. So you go down and we'd have food catered on the boat from like local delis, like really nice subs, pasta salad, salads, stuff like that. And then they'd have freaking Foot Locker tubs of either alcohol and sodas.
Yeah.
Yeah, so pretty much it just turned into, if you just went out and wanted to fish, of course we had the fishing, and then you could go in, wash your hands, have a sandwich, have some, salad, boom, boom, drink a few beers, and hang out with the guys you work with. It was really cool.
I've done it a few times too, but it was more of drive over to where the big giant boats are, and I don't think we had to get in line. I think it was more of pick the boat, and then when the boat fills or when they feel like going, I can't remember. It was I was a little kid, but it was more of whoever happens to be there to fish that day. Not so much like what you're saying, but that sounds more fun where everybody on the boat and everything. But I haven't done it I guess I have technically done it in the ocean once or twice when we visited Florida when I was a little kid and was really into fishing. They took me out on the ocean to fish for sharks. And that was the same kind of thing, though. A bunch of people prearranged to meet up at some boat, and then that was, again, groups of like 3 or 4 people on a boat that held maybe, 20 or something, like a whole bunch of people. But anyway, so they have an event coming up.
Yeah, they had that. They raffled off a couple of spots at
Oh, this already happened. I thought it was coming up.
Oh no, it's Sunday. It's happening Sunday. But
Okay.
at the kid shoot, the youth shoot that we hosted 2 weeks ago, or CNJFAO hosted, and I volunteered at. One of the prizes they gave away was 2 spots on the fishing trip, and that was cool. Because one of the guys won it, and he was like, "Look, I'm doing something, man. Throw it back in and do another drawing." So I thought that was pretty cool. And the second guy that won it, him and his son were actually, I think they're doing a sports thing tomorrow, like at who's playing, the Cowboys and the Giants or something. They have tickets to the game, so they're going to that. So it got thrown in a second time, and then that person won it is going. So I thought it was just funny. Because one guy I think had a firearms related class, the other person had, the football game. It's like priorities are priorities, man. Ocean's gonna be there. You can go fish anytime.
Yeah, and it's not like, well, I guess it is something. I must be oversimplifying it, but when I'm used to fishing on lakes and things, or even on rivers, I guess, rivers have times a year when they flow good or they don't, and that's when fishing's good or bad. Lakes have seasons when there's rain or not, or whatever, when the lakes are, in good position for fishing. Is the ocean like that? I guess it must be. I'm just probably oversimplifying it, but you would think the ocean's always got fish in it, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it probably does. I don't know. I'm not a fisherman. I'll go to socialize because my family used to do the same thing in Virginia Beach. And we wouldn't rent the whole boat. I didn't even know that was a thing until I started working for my company where they rent the whole boat. But it was like you said, you and your family would show up to the boat, and there'd be like, 15, 20 other people, and you just merge in with them and go fishing. Hova's here.
So we're just asking Tony what's been going on. So what's been going on the Clover channel?
Kicked off the new podcast season last week with technical difficulties, basically both days, which that was fun. But
Waving guns all around. Well, maybe if you didn't wave guns all around, maybe that wouldn't happen.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I don't know what happened the second day. That was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Like, I don't know. The second day, it did not go live on YouTube. Hit go live like we did, and it said, "Hey, you're live," and like YouTube never came up. It
I'm
never
mixing
started.
it together. That's right. The first one got kicked off. It worked, but then the second one just never went live. I didn't have that happen. So knock on wood. Must have been some kind of a login glitch or something.
It had to have been just one of those weird things because later that night, I went live over on the car channel and it worked fine. I didn't have a problem. So something just glitched somewhere, I guess. Just I don't know. So, but thankfully, I mean, not that I'm sponsored by StreamYard or any of us are or whatever, but thankfully with StreamYard, and I think it's a perk of maybe of the paid version. I don't know for sure. But it records regardless. I mean, regardless of whether it ever makes it to the YouTube side or wherever you're pushing it, it does record it. So I was able to pull that recording and just upload it like a normal video on both of those, and so we were good to go. But yeah, a little bit of adversity, I guess, with the new podcast season. So hopefully those,
Out of curiosity, how long does it take our podcast show to upload on your YouTube, on your internet?
I can get it uploaded, and I can get it up. Oh, not long at all, 5 minutes or so. I can get it uploaded, title, thumbnail, and then YouTube actually gets the HD version rendered, and that's what takes the most time, in probably 20 to 30 minutes. It's probably 10 or 15, something like that, max, I guess, for me to what am I thinking? To download it from StreamYard, chop the front, chop the back,
Well,
clean
that's
it
true.
up.
You got to download it too. I forgot about that. Usually, it
Yeah.
doesn't take long,
Yeah, no, my upload speed's the same as my download, so I'm only
okay.
my main restriction. Yeah, I'm on fiber optic, so it's 100, 100 maybe or something.
So it's
100
more
gig,
of a
100
thing
gig.
on their end because a lot of times places know that most of the internet is kind of one speed, so they'll just set their throttle at that
They
speed. If you're
restrict.
10 times faster, it doesn't help you at all because they're going to have that
Exactly. Yeah, as long as they don't have a restriction on their throttle on their upload speed, then it's yeah, no big deal.
Alright. So yeah, thanks for jumping in. We're just doing a little bit different. I do these every once in a while because I've got these old magazines. I dig them, and Tony was saying that he used to read these things too. I don't know if we talked about it with Clover, what magazines he used to read back in the day. These aren't my old ones, but I don't know what really happened to them. I probably got lost in a move, quote unquote, when your parents just don't move all your stuff back in the day. But these are I bought a MRE box of them from a gun show one time of almost all American survival guides and some soldier fortunes. And then whenever I can find these kind of magazines that are decent at a good price, I'll buy them because I like the reminiscing of them. So what we've got is 1982 here. We've got these are four of them. I call it American Survival Guide. At some point, they either changed to American Survival Guide or they changed from. I'm guessing they changed to in the later 80s. So back then it was just called Survival Guide, and we've got a 1982 edition. Well, they're all 1982. So we've got the September edition with pit bulls, foraging, and Ladies' Choice weaponry for women with a Bushmaster on the cover. Or we've got one from May with empty shelves and a baby. No one's ever seen an empty shelves photo before on the internet. And then it says Double Trouble, Rossi Overland Magnum 12, starvation insurance, off the shelf survival, urban gardening, and foraging. That's two with foraging now. Trapping and skinning. And then a Daewoo? I don't know what that is. Then we've got one from March. This one, I've tagged it with a Freedom Arms ad, so there must be something from Freedom Arms in here. But this one says, keep burglars out, women learning to survive, light living without medicines, and make the sun work for you. And somebody had wrote on here, save this issue, Corbin Bullet Swatch story. So that works for me because I like ammo history. Then my last survival guide from 1982, at least in this batch, is August. This one says future metal shock. Should you bank on lead or gold? And then look at that picture with the 1911, bunch of 45 ACPs, and a bunch of probably Cougarans or something. Urban survival, safety for city dwellers. And then, oh, what happened? Combat shotgun. You fiddling with it over there? Then this one is a Soldier of Fortune from February of 82. We got the 81 Soldier of Fortune Convention. U.S. strikes gold in South Africa. Killing for Mother Russia. And then it says exclusive. Soldier of Fortune on Thailand's Battle Road. Look at that knife. Then we've got a Soldier of Fortune from October of 82. Dude just carrying mortars on his chest. No big deal. Bullets and ballots in El Salvador. Death on the Skeleton Coast. And that's it. So, and then this, is that a G3 or something? What do you think that is? I have no idea. I don't know enough about these guns. I remember a FAL is what I'm thinking. Is that a FAL?
Looks like a FAL.
Charging handle on the left. Pretty sweet picture, though. So anyway, half the fun of these magazines was Soldier of Fortune at least, was when they would go places and get these photos that were unreal. Like just going to all kinds of places and getting photos. So does anybody have any thoughts as we first dig in? If you're watching live, feel free to let us know. You don't have to look at all of them. I just grabbed a selection from 1982 to play with. Sometimes it's fun to go to the back and look at the ads. Sometimes it's neat to look at the articles. Looks like there's a Charter Arms ad. Anyway, so anybody got any thoughts or anything as we first start to dig in? Any strategies on how to dig into them?
Well, for me, growing up, bro, you just find whichever one you like the most, like the one thing that intrigues you, and you just crack it open. And I love that because that's how I got my magazines. I've told it before, so if you listen to this, you've heard it. I used to buy them pretty much at the Goodwill or Salvation Army, whichever one it was. And they'd go for like a nickel or something. And I'd read them until the pages fell out. Like American Survival, I think that was the first magazine I actually read about an AK, and that's the magazine I discovered the 454 Casull. They did an article on that being used by Freedom Arms. And of course, my Soldier of Fortune magazines, I never had a subscription, but whoever did had a subscription, I was the second owner. Because I guess they'd like stack them for a year or two and then just dump them off at the Goodwill, and I'd be right there. Like it was like I discovered gold whenever we came by, and not many people would read it. So I'd get it, and I'd start at the beginning, and everything intrigued me from the advertisements to the letters came in the mail call, everything.
That's what I was going to say. The mail call was pretty interesting. We didn't have the internet, so this is where you would get insight into stuff you never thought about before, like maybe a way to pack a backpack or something to prepare for or something to be aware of or some whole different gun that you didn't even know about, because unless you've seen an advertisement for it, again, there wasn't, unless some of you knew had one, how were you going to know about it?
Until I joined my team's air rifle team in school, which again, we had to be members of the NRA to be in. Yeah, I noticed that trigger discipline. We had to be a member of the NRA to be on the school's air rifle team. And that's when I was just, you discover new stuff because, I picked, I think, American Rifleman magazine was the one I chose to get. Nice. You gotta love it because those are the guns for the ladies. 22s.
Exactly. And there wasn't a lot of choices, but I don't know.
Well, I don't want to be cliche in an era of postmodern feminism, but that right there suggests that women have high standards.
Dude, I almost spit my drink out. That was such a dad joke. Oh, dude, you almost got me.
I'm trying to mute because I think I get echo or whatever if I don't leave it muted. So an article in Survival Guide from 1982 about the Colt AR-15.
Mm-hmm.
How many people do you know that owned a Colt AR-15 in 1982? And we're all gun people. We knew gun people.
Not one. Not one. And
zero for me, zero. And they wouldn't. Maybe if it was free, they'd buy it to laugh at it, but nobody owned them.
I'm thinking just the number of people that owned a magazine-fed semi-automatic rifles.
And when you think about it, this is when a lot of the gun control crap started, or at least was being forged. Mm-hmm. And it was easy to blow this off because a lot of people hated it. Like our grandparents' era would probably not even acknowledge it as a thing. It's a little kid's fad toy. And our parents' generation would have not given a shit about it either. Their experience was probably with the M16 and that's it. And whatever limited experience they had was probably not all that positive. So, I think back in the day, I didn't know too many people. Maybe Clover did, being out west.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, like the people that own semi-autos were rimfire. That they owned semi-autos that were rimfire, or if it was again magazine fed, again rimfire. Because also, I mean, I lived in Virginia, so self-defense, hunting were the two main purpose, followed by either plinking or varmint, just to pop something around the farm. And you didn't need an AR for any of that, or anything even more powerful than a 22 for some of that. And because we lived in a flat area, shotguns were the only thing legal for hunting. Rifles, centerfire rifles couldn't be used for hunting. So pretty much you knock that down. And if you wanted I had an uncle who had lever actions that fired pistol caliber carbines, 4440.
That's a great point. We didn't have any interest. We didn't have any requirement for guns that were other than reliability and looks or something, there wasn't a lot of options, and you just went with your brands. But there wasn't people. You weren't doing too much with guns back then. You know, you were going out hunting maybe, or you were going out to the range, but people weren't carrying them, and they weren't too concerned about you know, taking them to places like a training center or someplace where they could use them and figure out stuff with them, or even have ranges that were creative that, you know, you could use your gun instead of just shooting it. So yeah, there was a different. We demanded different from our guns back then, and until guns started getting demands out of them, I want to carry this every day. I better have this with me. It needs to work. It needs to be comfortable or whatever. You know, none of that stuff was in the manufacturer's realm, right? They were worried about, oh, look at our fine materials, or look at our slightly different design.
Yeah, because right now I'm trying to think. I mean, you know, it's crazy. You go way back, but sometimes you think you remember stuff, or you would remember stuff more clearly. And I'm thinking about the times that, you know, family got together. Usually, for the most part, it was in the fall, um, after most of the work was done on farming and everything. And we'd have the food, everything. Everybody would be in my grandma's house, and you bring your guns down, and we're going to shoot some cans or shoot some stuff out, and then gather it up, you know, and toss it afterwards. But like, I had uncles that bring their, you know, 357 Magnum revolvers, uncles that would bring 22s. I had one that brought one of those COPs, the 4-barrel 357 Magnum, pretty much Derringer. It was horrible. It was just a horrible gun. And yeah, I had, was it Buckmaster? Yeah, Browning. Whatever Browning's gun was. Browning's 22. I forgot what it was called.
The Buckmark, the Challenger before the Buckmark, but
yeah, Buckmark. Yeah, I was at Buckmark. And my one uncle, man, had a trigger on there that you could double tap that gun by thinking about it. Like, I
no,
never
the
figured out the
Buckmarks.
trigger.
The Buckmarks are still, to me, the one of, if not the best trigger out of, like, literally out of the box. They were back. They were back in the day, and they still are that way. I mean, I've gotten one. I've handled a bunch of very modern ones within the last few years, but you know,
Okay.
I actually bought one. I don't know, probably 6 years ago, maybe is the newest one I've got, and I mean, they're still right out of the box, phenomenal triggers. Now they can be made a little bit better with a little love, but yeah, pretty phenomenal.
Yep. He used to laugh at me because, you know, you got the cans up, because we had cans back then that actually made a 10. And I'd aim at it, and it's like, "Pah!" He was like, that was 3 rounds. I'm like, what? It's like, good Lord. How tight is that trigger? Because you're a kid. You know, you mashed the trigger. Right? You mashed the trigger, you came off of it, you hit it again and again. The reset had to be crazy. Or my uncle just filed the sear down. He's dead now. Statute of limitations doesn't care about a statute of limitations. But those were the good old days. But it's really funny because all those guns on that page right there would be stuff I would drool over, going, man, I'd like to at least shoot one day. And I'm like, I think I've shot every one of those.
All of them? Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun though, man, because when I watch G do this, it really is funny that I was the kid that would look at this stuff until the pages fall out. And then I think it hit me again last year as I'm crossing over going into SHOT Show, that somehow I went from that kid to the guy that's going on SHOT Show and gonna, you know, was scheduled to be on SHOT TV. I'm like, this is crazy how life just takes you. Like, if I would have told 10-year-old Tony, hey, you're gonna be at Vegas in an industry trade show one day and you're gonna speak, like I did in 2020 on the you know, Unity board with Maj, I probably couldn't wait to grow up. It would have been even worse, you know, as a kid. I can't wait to grow up. Yeah, you're gonna be surrounded by like guns and stuff, and you're gonna be on stage talking about it and how to get other people into it. No way.
So this is from Freedom Arsenal in Beaver, Arkansas. And it says Visa, MasterCard, order by phone, right? All these are brand new semi-auto, come with one magazine. Must be a citizen and in residence, must be 18, no felony. Fill out and return the VATF form we send you when we receive the order. Allow 6 to 8 weeks for delivery. So, yes, they're just delivering guns by mail with, how'd that work?
Mm-hmm.
Just fill out a form. Void where prohibited by state or local law. That makes no sense. Terms of sale, certified personnel checks. So yeah, I don't know. Unless they just subtly don't include in here that they're going to send it to an FFL near you, and maybe they just easier for the end user by taking all your money and hooking it up, and then they tell you, okay, now go pick it up at your FFL. That would work.
Well, is there any indication that those people said those sell to individuals and not, maybe that's dealer to wholesaler or whatever, importer or whatever, to dealer?
No, that's what I would think too. But it says no federal license required. We
Oh,
deliver
yeah.
direct to you. So no, that makes no sense.
Are
So I
they?
don't know. Unless it's an FBI
Huh.
trap or something. The laws certainly by 1982 we're still can't buy across state lines. So,
Mm-hmm.
Hey, could have been could have been a scam.
Yeah, FBI trap or something, or just I don't think a scam because it was a decent publisher and they were in business for a long time. I just noticed that as we were talking about that page. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to talk about the prices on that page, but we can potentially take a look at that. There's a survival self-test in here. At what air temperature of wind results in an equivalent wind? Okay, that's tough. So the diagonal stride is a steady motion used in backpacking, skiing, karate, or running sprints. The diagonal stride. Correct. Cross-country skiing. Both of these guys are experts, so they both didn't want to answer at the same time.
Well, I didn't want to. Yeah, I didn't want to make anyone feel dumb.
In making a desert water cache for possible escape route, you should bury water under a large mound of rocks, bury water in sand, and smooth the sand over, bury water and mark it with an unobservable or mark it with unobtrusive locators, or bury it and mark it with fluorescent paint. How would you bury your water?
Oh, I would a combination of them. I would get some rocks and I would spray paint them with fluorescent paint and then use them to form the letters water here and then do an X in the middle of it.
This one says do it with unobtrusive locators.
Or that.
In the United States, the compass declination is 0, 30 to 20, 15 to 0, or 5 to east to 5 west.
Clover can answer this one. I've answered too many of them already.
Actually, the magnets point to eastern Canada. So for most of the United States, it's about a 20, 30 degree. Our compasses will point to Canada instead of the North Pole. So you just want to make that correction on maps. The chief danger from wild bears is 1, when females have young cubs, 2, hibernation, 3, when they are mating, and 4, when they are tracked by dogs. What's the worst of those?
It completely depends whether or not they're trying to mate with you, I suppose. But
or you're trying to mate with them.
Well, this is true. This is true.
When a bear says no, they mean no.
Outside of that, probably the mama bear thing.
Yeah, the babies.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, this one would be interesting, actually. The greatest number of fatalities annually is caused by, and this is 1982, bees and wasps, Clover, scorpions, bites by venomous snakes, or black widow spiders.
Bees and scorpions. Or bees and wasps.
Yep. Doesn't say the numbers, but it says bees is
Yeah.
the number one out of that.
Most common across the
Mosquitoes don't
country.
kill you; they just hurt. Snakes, I guess, can kill you, but I don't know how many
Well,
people.
snakes are more interested in getting away, and not very many people run into venomous snakes anyway. Like I said, wasps and bees are there's a pretty high percentage of folks allergic to them, especially bees, and they're prevalent all across the country as well. So
And yeah, then you can set them.
backyard
You can be
gardens,
minding
right?
your
Like
business.
yeah, backyard gardens, storage sheds. Yeah, you don't run into the other stuff as often as you run into those things.
This is from our day. Following a nuclear blast, minimum in shelter time should be 2 days, 2 months, 2 weeks, or 2 years. Well, I could put it in order: 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, or 2 years.
Hold on. All right. Shelter in place.
Uh huh.
The shortest one. What's the shortest one?
2 days, 2
Mm.
weeks, 2 months, 2 years.
I'm trying to remember because we didn't
2
really
weeks.
have a choice. I'm gonna go with shelter in place.
2 weeks.
You think 2 weeks?
Mhm.
Because everything's gonna be jacked up, but you're not gonna be at ground zero. If your ground zero is over with, I'm going with 2 days.
Well, then you want enough time, but you I don't think 2 days is enough time for fallout and things that need to settle either.
Well, if
So
you're at
2 weeks.
ground zero, you're done anyway.
Well, no, but it's the Jericho thing. Like, if you can, they say 2 weeks, but I think that was
Okay.
if you can get it to rain or something, right? So that it washes the shit out of the air and it washes it down into the rivers.
That's
It's not
true. It's going to
perfect,
depend on the
out of there.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. It's going to depend on the environmental factors for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's kind of stuff we would be worried about in the 80s. But I thought it might be interesting too, since this one does have this article about the Colt. This is 1982, so just about a year. How many years ago is this? 40? No, is it possible to be 40 years ago? Holy shit!
Yep.
This is 40 years ago. So this
Crazy.
is 40 years ago, essentially. Which assault rifle is most popular in the U.S.? And then it gets into,
Mini 14.
well, it says the Colt, the AR-15.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it says it's been available since '63. It says considering the quality of manufacture and versatility, economical price tag at $533 for the Sporter, $586 for the collapsible stock. So there's been there's been times it's not an unreasonable price recently. I mean, maybe I don't know what they are right now, but in recent times, certainly not 40 years ago, that price has remained fairly constant. To say of a Galil being $1,200 or a Valmet being $1,500, and what does a Valmet and a Galil cost today? Not twice that, about that price, right? Somewhere in there. Maybe I don't know. It's been a long time since I've purchased one of those, either one of those.
Wow.
AR-15 has the mystique of a military combat weapon. The current civilian Colt, in terms of design, is directly related to these others. The AR-15 is light and easy to field strip and service. It now serves as a hunter of small game, as a competitor in military-style matches, as a primary long weapon. This is 1982. The AR-15 is favored by numerous individuals and groups and survivalists because it's been sold in large numbers, hence future part supply will be less a problem. 1982, we've had this conversation
So
online.
so I run
But,
an inflation. I run an
Okay.
inflation
I did
inflation
too.
calculator on $500 because I was just curious, and
Yep.
so that comes out to about $1,500 in today's dollars, which is about
Uh-huh.
right for a Colt AR-15. So that's interesting.
This is
Very
funny.
interesting.
I was looking at it too. I'm like, all right, how
Yeah.
much is $583? And it's like
Yeah, it's
1,700.
like almost perfectly in line with inflation. Yeah.
And then
With
I went to
today's
Colt's
prices.
website, and the M4A1 SOCOM card being $14.99.
Yeah. Yeah. It's close enough.
So
Yeah.
it says, although it's outwardly non-complex and assembled vast number of parts, it's designed for field stripping, blah, blah, blah. The AR-15 earned an evil reputation in Vietnam. Corrosion, jamming, excessive rate of full auto fire resulted in failure to clean the rifle. So unlike the other rounds, this one is decent for hunting. I just wanted to hit those bullet points because essentially those are the conversations that are happening 40 years later. I don't know. Is it because of a cycle? Is it because there's really nothing else to say about them? Or is it because people? I think it's people come in, they get interested, they read this stuff, and then they go off. Now they're into remote control cars. Now they're in ham radio. Now they're into their swimming pool. Now they're into something else. They pamper their pugs, but and then new people come along and they haven't heard this conversation, so copy paste, play the conversation again. Bunch of people agree, disagree. Time moves on. Copy paste the conversation. I don't know. I just thought that was
Well,
interesting to see some
I,
bullet points being almost the same conversations as today.
I just would love to find one of because this is 83. That means the clock came out that year, right?
No, it's 82 and it came out in 84, so a couple years later. But yeah,
Uh,
definitely before the even shadow. You don't see nothing plastic or polymer. These are the
Nothing.
plastic or polymer of the early 80s. And these aren't unobtainable, but what did it say? This thing cost $2,700 back then. Like, that was a lot of money. It's always been a lot of money. I'm going to jump to Soldier of Fortune. If anybody in the audience has a suggestion or what's the word, preference on what we thumb through here? Agree?
I saw that guy's face and I was like, that's the one with Thailand. Like, I didn't even have to read the cover. That's how much I went into those magazines.
So American Survival was sort of like an encyclopedia because there was always going to be a couple articles. There was always some kind of gear evaluations, fairly consistent, just like a backpacking magazine or something. They had like these departments and they were always filling those departments. And every once in a while there'd be a department missing, but they consistently would get all these different things. So these were worth buying because you were accumulating stuff. Soldier of Fortune had that element to it, but it had the classifieds, which are completely unique and just fun to dig into. Its ads were a total another level, but then it was reviewing stuff in the community, like shooting events and doing their own shooting events and stuff, which some of the other ones were only paying attention to the gear. This magazine was paying more attention to people doing stuff with the gear, or testing their training, or having competitions on who's better through training events. Through competitions and stuff. But then they also would go send writers, or writers would be. I don't know how it worked, but I don't think they sent writers out, but writers would certainly write to them about stuff like this. Just going out and, like you're saying, Thailand, and bringing us insight to what was happening that no news was going to bother with. The news might have sent somebody out to do this stuff, and then they'd summarize it down to 15 minutes of an hour news show if you were lucky. Occasionally on something super critical, you get a 1 hour television show, but most of the time your only insight into stuff was through these kind of articles. And again, looking at AKs and stuff in 1982 and hearing all about how the usually guerrillas or insurgents are defending themselves from communism here and there and the other places. This is all Cold War time.
Yeah, the interesting part was when you read, or at least I noticed, they would always talk on, about how violent the world was, and there's 70 small wars going on around the world at any given time. Well, the news would never tell you about it unless something weird happened, or something that directly affect. Excuse me. Now that I know it, something that they were told to put in. But when you read Soldier of Fortune magazine, you found out that, the Skeleton Coast and Namibia had war going on. You learned about French Guiana, you know what I mean? The fact that we're fighting there, or the battles in Chad. It's like, you didn't know this stuff. Or learned about Kurds for the first time. That's where I picked up a lot of that stuff. Or the fact that Thailand, Burma still had wars going on, the Karen rebels over there, all of that. You didn't see that in the regular news.
No, because unless we were involved or somebody in the news audience was going to be involved or worried about it, yeah, they wouldn't. They just didn't bring it up. I mean, it's natural. You're not going to talk about everything. You can't talk about everything. But because that stuff, is essentially regional or whatever, or not international newsworthy, then this was insight to it. What about the French Foreign Legion? Did you know anybody that was in the Legion?
Hold on.
So the French Foreign Legion was a thing, or still is a thing. I think you can. Anybody can, or back in the day for sure, anybody could go there and essentially get paid by France, right, to go fight places, and France would go help people out. I don't know if that's the way everybody saw it, but that's how they saw it, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, I never knew. I don't think I knew anybody. I was trying to put it together, but no, I don't think I knew anybody who was actually actively serving in the French Foreign Legion.
Because that was a way to do stuff in that Cold War time when
Hmm.
you wanted to be involved or, like you're saying, do something, but there wasn't, even if you enlisted, there was nothing going on. Everybody was at a stalemate for the most part. This whole thing about survival bullet making, swagging bullets, turning
Hmm.
22s into 223 copper jacketed projectiles. I think that's making a shotgun slug. So that's
Swaging.
something, swaging.
Yeah.
That's something that I know kind of got popular 5 years ago, maybe. I don't know if it'll get popular again on YouTube. We talk about mop gear. This is what mop gear is. So it's that horror. It looks cool, but that's that horrible mask, which is a gas mask with a big green, like baggie on top of it, like a big green. What do you call it? Like a raincoat kind of thing over it, and then you put it on. You have to put on. You can hardly tell in this video, but this guy's got a giant set of gloves on that go like halfway up your forearm, underneath your coat, and they're just like wearing giant rubber gloves, and it's horrible as you can imagine. It's super hard to deal with stuff, and he's dealing with the Penny 14. That's insane. And then you got essentially a suit of clothes on that replace your normal clothes or go on top of your other clothes if you're unlucky enough to have worn clothes before you put them on. And then that's like a set of clothes made out of charcoal. So it's like layer of cotton, layer of charcoal, layer of some kind of other shit, and then a layer of cotton. And that's you're wearing all of that on a coat and the pants. And then you're wearing this giant set of goofy boots that are, I don't know, they're hard to explain. They're like wearing a giant piece of rubber that's wrapped up around your foot in a weird way. And it seems like it's going to collect chemicals to me, but whatever. So, anyway, you're essentially wrapping yourself up in charcoal and rubber and then running around and doing stuff. And they thought it was important to do stuff that way so that you'd be ready to fight that way. And a lot of us remember those days fondly. It's a lot of fun. Hueys, that was the only helicopters we had back then. And those dudes from uh, Vietnam could fly Hueys like kids can drive skateboards today. So remember the TV shows from the day, from like the 80s with all those Huey pilots that went into stunt flying? You don't really see that stuff today. Now it's a lot of CGI because nobody in their right mind is going to fly helicopters the way they did back then. And they're not allowed to, from what I understand, listening to stories, listening to some of the interviews and stuff. So here's some of the fighting knives. Look how much that's changed. Who would ever suggest something like this today?
A couple people. Shiv works.
Really?
Yeah, they have. I mean, those are push daggers, but pretty much they're still pushing those things from behind the, belt carry, something on your center line. Also, was it? Craig Douglas is the name that keep popping up in my head. I think that's the company.
Yeah, that's Southmark. Yeah.
Yeah, so small push dagger things that can you can reach with either hand. Yeah.
Turns out when drugs are gone, all you got to do is push on people in different ways, yank on their legs and stuff.
Hmm.
They'll be fine. So if you got somebody who's trying to get off of the drugs, push on them, yank on their legs. protecting your home. It's pretty much the same kind of topics, just the things, the stuff has changed. That's an interesting display. Got the Uzi upside down in the display case. It's always sad watching a Uzi carbine with that super long barrel. I feel sad for those Uzis.
Yeah, welcome to loss for no freaking reason. Oh, you're safer now because the barrel on that Uzi is 16 inches long instead of 10.
All right, so checking out the poll, Soldier Fortune's got 22% of the favorite magazine from the 80s. Other is also winning at 22%. I guess coming in second, I should say, to I couldn't read in the 1980s. So 1980s, what do you feel like the 1980s? You remember them still? Or is it vague memory? Or you still recalling stuff from the 80s all the time? Or is it a forgotten time that doesn't hardly apply anymore? How often do you think back to the 80s? We're all old enough, I think, to remember the 80s.
I don't really. No, I mean, unless something comes up, I don't run around reminiscing like, oh my goodness, those are the good old days or those are the horrible old days. It was just all right. Unless something brings it up, like when I think about the first time, I saw really cool gear that I wish I had. Oh man, why are you looking through those advertisements full of stuff that I thought was really cool and now I know it sucks horribly. But yeah, I don't really think about it. I don't think all that much. I think it's one of also the things my partner used to tell me about, man, living in now. You'll have a whole bunch of time when you can't do anything that you can reminisce about the past. But go out and do stuff right now.
What about Clover? You like a bunch of guns from the 80s? Or you think back to the
Yeah,
80s?
it's every day. I mean, every day there's probably something. I mean, it's not like I just sit around and pine and ponder, but there's usually something that spark, whether it's music or movies or, guns or something in pop culture or just something around the house that I've run into or stumbled across or, whatever. Somebody that I meet in town, that, yeah, I mean, that's a part of, your life's journey and living and whatever, and so there's the fleeting, I guess you could call it, thoughts or whatever that happen all the time.
Yeah, as I'm looking at this, like I just looked at this dude's jacket. Like I think of the 80s as like my baseline. So I'm comparing everything. So when I see something, I'm like, dude, that thing's amazing. Because I'll compare it to whatever I had in high school and not necessarily to what came out yesterday. So I might look at something that's 10 years old and think, oh man, that's great. And not realizing that there's 3 better models, but it's better than like this guy's jacket, or it's better than, whatever tech we had back in the 80s. What do you think of a double barrel shotgun as anything other than going hunting with it?
Actually, I was putting together something before COVID about people that aren't into firearms like at all, but they wanted a way to protect their loved ones. And I was looking at something simple like that. Look, this guy is not, going to practice. They're not going to learn how to run a pump. They're going to short stroke it. It's like, what is the lowest effort, lowest cost way that a person can defend their lives and themselves? And I'm like, so I was looking at doing a little series of taking up a double barrel shotgun and, light and sling and maybe even the side saddle or whatever you call it for a couple extra, I think it's 5 shells to get someone into the door of firearms ownership and then use that to browbeat them to go and, hey, listen, you need to learn how to shoot a moving target so you're not a danger. Why don't you come out and we do some clay shooting? My thing is to get people in the door and then drag them to shooting events and let them socialize, fellowship with others, and see, okay, you got in the door. This is your thing. But check out this Benelli. You know what I mean? Uh, I use the model of the after school special drug dealer. Get them in the door and then turn them into a Second Amendment advocate eventually.
And also that I learned it from watching you.
I learned it from watching you, Dad.
So now you brought up some good points. Are you going to have only fancy, high tech, uber advanced options, or for those times when you need to hand it off to grandma or to a little kid? And like you just said, you've got a pretty easy to operate operating system there. It's capable because you've got 2 shots, right? You've got a follow up that's ultimately quick. There's no pumping or any kind of manipulation needed. It really can't malfunction. I mean, technically, there's anything can, but it would be very difficult for it to malfunction. I'm a little worried about the length of it. I don't think it needs to be that long, but some people could say the length aids in safety because you can see the muzzle direction so much easier. But then it's super easy to keep track of how many rounds are in it, right? And I guess it is true that these things can go off from like slamming them down or whatever. Technically, it's not probable, but that's just a potential. So yeah, I think there is some value to having a double barrel side by side laying around. Clover, I know you're anti everything we've just talked about, but do you have anything to add to that? It's probably just
No.
crap on the whole idea.
Nah.
Now, is this one a fancy one, or am I crazy? This isn't one barrel's 1 gauge and the other barrel's something else.
No.
Okay, it's just maybe the way that this thing's laying.
Yeah, no, not the Overland. No.
Okay. What do you think of the idea of a 12 gauge rifle caliber next to each other?
Oh, side by side?
Yeah.
No, if you're gonna do that,
Under.
yeah, if you're gonna do that, you want to go over and under. I'm not a fan. I mean, I get it for some of the survival situations with like the 410 and the 22, some things like that. Um, I get it from that standpoint because you can carry a lot more like 22 or something in your pocket, and for certain things like that, then and usually that's on the top barrel for accuracy reasons with sights. But I mean, if you had a situation where you needed scatter shot, I mean, maybe there was more. You're trying to feed yourself, I guess. We're talking, so that's why most of those are considered survival. So you're talking a bird in flight, something along that nature makes it a little bit easier. Um, I mean, there's a situation, but I don't know. I've never been that huge of a fan of the rifle, shotgun, double barrel stuff.
So I was asking whether or not people use the 80s for their current, I don't know, decisions or thoughts or whatever. And Plain Up saying I was all a 10 when the 80s was ending. I do remember stuff from then. Chris is saying best music came out of the 80s. Woods is saying the best movies were out of the 80s. I don't disagree. There's definitely some very good movies and some very good music. I'm glad music kept going, but I'm not. I don't mind stopping on an 80s channel once in a while. Let me ask this question. You're fiddling around, you're on a long road trip, you're fiddling with the radio, you find an 80s station on satellite or something. What songs are going to trigger you to change it to a different station and keep browsing because you've heard too many of these songs in a row and you're not liking the 80s anymore? What are your 80s songs that you're done with the 80s?
99 Wolf Balloons. Gone.
Oh,
Done.
really?
Peace. Oh my God, I hate everything about that song.
Either version?
Either version, English or German, I don't care.
Yeah.
I was in German class, I think, when that song came out, so I can totally understand because we were obnoxiously obnoxious about that song. I was in like the German language class when that song came out, I think, or I knew people. I can't remember, but I remember that you either like
Now,
that song, or I imagine it could give you trauma because that song was everywhere for a while.
oh, it was just sucked. And here's the crazy part. I worked in a gentleman's club in the early 90s. Now, people are like, what's that got to do with anything? The music played in those clubs was from the 80s and the early 90s, mostly from the 80s, even some from the 70s. But it's every night, 8 hours a day, every shift, 7 days a week. And still, 99 Luft balloons gets on my nerves faster than Hot for Teacher.
Yeah, because that's the thing. There's probably like a dozen or 24 songs that they play at those places, right? And then
Yeah, you're not past whatever's popular right now would be played, and then yeah, there's 24 songs to get played the rest of the night. And
so
every
it's
now and
kind of,
again, the DJ would get a wild hair up his butt and remix something to do something when they're bored and the place is almost empty.
for me, it was like Foreigner, like the stuff where it's like whiny kind of songs. Like I got some dude whining to me with music that's slow and whatever, and it would seem like it was always on back then. I was gonna rag on this guy's weird. I don't know what you call this wrist cup technique, and he takes a picture of it as if to show he's so fancy, he's so happy about it. But he's like, let me hold it with one hand and then hold my wrist. I don't know, but that's what we thought back in the day. I guess we thought that was cool, or nobody cared. That's one of the big differences. Like you could post this today as a joke, right? But if you posted this picture today, what would happen? Like if you were like, "Here's my technique for a lightweight 38 revolver shooting." Like,
Well, everybody would clown on you, but the funny part was, I've spent enough time at the range to go, hey, is he hitting the target? What's his groups look like?
well,
Because if it works,
wears out his bone muscle. He's just doing it, and he can only last like 2 rounds, 2 boxes of 380, and he's going home every day. That's what it's.
and that's fine because there's no 100-round gunfights. So
But I'm just saying,
again,
general enjoyment. Like, hey, if you shot that thing, like with actually thinking about your articulate, your bone connecting, like thinking about how your bones work, then you might be able to not go home and have to soak your wrist in an ice bath.
Epsom salt, Epsom salt.
So I see there's traps in here. Controversial, but that's one of those things where a lot of people are like, oh, what's, especially conversations that are had online. I don't get into them because of this kind of stuff, but people will be like, what's your best gun for shooting stuff and survival shit hits the fan? And it's like, for the first week or two, you might be able to shoot stuff. And then everybody who did this depopulated the environment. Like, critters take some amount of time to breed. They don't just magically pop out of the dirt. So once you kill all the breeding females or males or both, goodbye species. And you could be shooting all you want ethically out of your backyard, but somebody's doing this with dozens of these, and they're eating great for a week, and maybe they're even preserving some of that. But that's why people who think that after the EMP blast or something, you're going to be hunting. No, maybe hunting rabbits out of your backyard that you collect and breed. But anyway, I don't want to get too dire, but that's one of those things where they don't really talk about this too much online. I guess it's because nobody wants to think about it, or you don't make enough money selling $24 traps or whatever. There's not enough markup in them. But how much does a trap even cost? Back then, it was probably a $7 trap.
So I've watched, what's his name, Dave Canterbury, and he was doing a trap and setting them up and doing. People are not going to put that work in because it's work. It's real work. It's almost like fishing. Oh, smaller the back carry. He's gonna break his spine. It's spinal.
And shoulder. This is
Oh my goodness, he's flagging everybody. He's gonna kill everybody.
He's flagging this guy's back and then flagging her feet, I think. So
It's a murderer waiting to happen. But yeah, people are not going to put in that work. It's like people that think they're going to be able to fish to survive. Do you know how to fish? Do you know where to fish? Do you know where to get bait? Do you know how to bait a hook? Do you know how to cast? Do you know how to clean a fish?
Well, but
Do you
again,
know how to cook a fish?
somebody's going to swim some tyrite. What's it called? The binary. You know, somebody's going to just put something in that lake, boom it, and all the fish are going to die and float to the surface. And there's some more fish in that lake, or they're going to poison it. There's like 6 different ways to poison a lake to get all the fish to swim to the surface and
Hmm.
scoop them up. And yeah, so yeah, again, if you think you're going to go to shared resources, you also have to protect them and monitor them and do all the stuff the state's been doing with those shared resources. It's pretty tough and impossible to do, really. I don't remember which ones we've looked at. Maybe we've looked at all of them. We've been going for an hour. Is there anything that I don't know? I'm trying to just do this one together. Is there anything that we've looked at or anything that brought up that we blew past? This is 1982, and they're talking about having a exposition, like an expo, getting a bunch of people together in Kansas City for the Self-Reliance and Survival Expo 1982. It was a 3-day event, 280 booths. Do we know how big TriggerCon is?
Well, how
Or
many did you?
Mm-mm.
so it's 280 booths. How big is Pennsylvania? Is the one in Pennsylvania?
Pennsylvania?
Yeah,
Good
400.
Lord.
I think
I don't know.
400.
Hold on.
So here we got the NAA, one of the buckles, and a review on how to use the buckle. Push button naval destroyer. I never had that buckle. $69. I never found one in a gun show or nothing ever.
Oh no, Great
No,
American
and
Outdoor
it looks
Show.
like it works with the long rifle version, so it's not the smallest one. I wish I'd like to get a belt buckle that works with the short, but I don't know if they work. Double barrel that you're talking about, one of these kind of carriers. So
Yeah.
that makes a pretty effective, uh, you know, tool.
So I just went on the Great American Outdoor Show features 1,100 exhibitors
Oh,
over
okay.
650,000 square feet.
They have more square feet than this place has exhibitors. Oh, look at this. Nice assortment of sticks. How many of these sticks do you have?
Yeah, I don't know on TriggerCon. It's small, obviously. Um, the last time I looked, I want to say it was somewhere in the 80s or so. But I mean, that could have grown, obviously, between then and now. So tough to say. But yeah, Great American Outdoors is going to be huge just because of all the different things involved in that one.
All right, well, so that was checking out. I wasn't scared to look at some of the prices. In the other episodes of doing this, we've looked at uh, the classified ads more. The shows don't get shut down, but I don't know where YouTube draws the line about talking about prices. Like if I was to show that ad with all them prices on it, is that bad news?
It's probably not gonna be as long as it's you're just make sure you're adding the context what you have that we're looking at old ads and old magazines, so it's not like any of that stuff is current, and a vast majority of those places probably are no longer in business anyway. So
Yeah, I'm assuming they're all gone and hopefully not replaced by something coincidentally of like the same name. Or would that be ironically or coincidentally? Like something ended and then something started up with the same name and then whatever, 20, 40 years later, I'm getting in trouble for the second version of the part 2 or whatever. All right. Well, so anything coming up? You guys want to plug anything before we head out? Thanks for joining in today.
Yeah, Diversity Shoot is coming up on the 21st of September at Union Hill Gun Club. Go to eventbrite.com, follow Tony Simon, and whenever tickets go up on sale, you'll be notified. Also, I send out email burst. I'm going to start doing it every other day this week and every day next week until Thursday. So I'm trying to let people know because I know I'm blacked out on a lot of the social media. So I just try to work my way around it and do what I got to do to let people know. Follow me on Instagram at Second for Everyone. Excuse me, Instagram on Simon Says Train. On Facebook at Simon Says Train, and the second is for everyone. And on X at Second for Everyone. You can also listen to our podcast. I'm on the Firearms Radio Network on the Gun and Gear Review podcast. I'm on the Self Defense Network on Self Defense Gun Stories. And I host something called the Second is for Everyone podcast, and that's available on Spotify.
Right on. Clover, you got anything coming up? You done with your stuff? You're retiring?
Yeah, exactly. Man, the podcast continues next week, so that's about all I've got. And then, yeah, I mentioned TriggerCon. 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, we will be in Wichita for TriggerCon. So 2 days of show and a day on the range there, and there will definitely be at least 5 videos coming out of that because that's my travel sponsor package. So I've got to at least make 5 videos to fulfill that commitment. So
Wait, are you talking about from TriggerCon?
yeah.
Yeah, but there's going to be like 20 plus exhibitors. Plenty of opportunity.
Oh, there's like 80. Last time I checked, it was in the 80s or something like that. So yeah. It won't be any problem getting 5 for the commitment. I'm just saying I've got to, and I'll spread it out. I'll do probably a range video. I'm sure I'll do one just kind of a montage from the range day, and then I'll probably do at least 2 on the floor. Just kind of depends on the companies that are there, and if anything is interesting at those companies, I'll try to be picky and choosy about that. That's what I try to do. The days of just going and just covering everything that I could possibly cover on the floor,
Done.
that just hinders. Yeah, that just hinders your time. It's a time sink, and my time is more spent making relationships that are going to, for the weeks and months following the show, is going to contribute to content production rather than trying to get content at the show itself. So, anyway, but there will be some stuff from TriggerCon for sure.
I think you'd probably get a lot of views if you do a TikTok dance on the floor.
Man, with the shoes that I've been into, and especially my my Snoop Dogg shoes.
Oh my God.
I've been hit up multiple times that I need to crip walk. The problem is most of these shows have carpet, and like I don't know if you've ever tried to crip walk on carpet before, but it's hard enough for a white boy to crip walk as it is. And yeah, it ain't happening on carpet. I can tell you that right now.
Man, listen, the only crip walk I know about is pretty much day 3 at SHOT Show and how I'm hobbling along. That's how I crip walk.
No kidding, especially day 4. Yeah.
Oh, jeez. I'm like, please shoot me. Someone shoot me.
Yeah.
What else? Oh, yeah, it's really, you're right, man. If you go around and try to see everybody at a show, you just miss a lot.
Well, if you try to film, especially,
Yeah.
seeing everybody is one thing, and having a quick conversation is one thing. But time you set up the camera, and that person's dealing with, somebody in the booth and they got to break free from that to get over in front of the camera, and then you film, and then you got to take all the microphones off and you got to turn them off, and you got to, you're talking about valuable minutes. I mean, for every booth you go in and film, you could meet and have a conversation. I'm just going to spitball and say at least 3 and maybe as many as probably 5 other companies. So, but that being said, there's quite a few, and our channels are always different, and everybody kind of knows certain companies they're not even going to approach, and that certainly will be the way at TriggerCon. There's a certain amount of that. Sounds like a lot, but there's a certain at 80 something, but there's a certain amount that I have no interest in. Like, I don't really have anything to offer them with what they're doing, and I don't necessarily think that I could offer them a value because, I just don't understand their product. I'm not really a user of their product, or maybe it's too high end anyway, or some situation like that. So, other than maybe I've seen them before, I know them, and it's a quick hey and a fist bump, and let them see that I'm there. Um, that's a hard pass on a certain amount. And then that it's that way too with certain ones. There's quite a few companies there that I already have a relationship with, and so that's just a quick fist bump or a walking by every now and then and just saying hey or whatever. It doesn't really take up a whole lot of time to do that. So with all of those factors in play, um, and my I don't plan to hit it like with a shot show hustle either. I plan to do it a little more laid back, more maybe like an NRA style approach, but or an NRAM style approach, I should say. But even with that, I mean, I see, it's I could probably rotate through the entire show floor, pretty easily in a day, um, and be able to have all the conversations I need to have, probably in a single day. So being able to get, 4 videos out the next day, or even split that up, 2 videos, do, half a day of floor, 2 videos in the evening, and then do the same thing the second day, you know, half a day working the floor, and then 2 videos that evening, and of course the range video, um, and enjoying that. At some point, we did get the mobile podcasting equipment in. I got that in the other day for Ghost and I. That's part of a shot show deal that we've got worked with the company. Anyway, it come in, and there may be we may try to work some kind of trial run on a. Now I don't know that we would be able to go live, but at least maybe record that at TriggerCon and set something up, a special Ghost and Clover episode at TriggerCon that we could turn around and release that maybe once we get back. Kind of me.
As far as I know, I've looked into it, and it is legal to go live from Kansas
Oh yeah.
currently.
Well, I was concerned
Currently.
about that. Yeah, yeah. Well, Gizzard does it, and so we. But he's also like
Rogue.
uber super famous too, so he gets special treatment. We know that.
He's like the Wolfman Jack, just going live no matter what the law says.
This is true. Yeah.
All right, well, now we're on off the rails. So that's talking about TriggerCon, and you're going to be up there. You got the podcast. You already talked about that, or you just alluded to it. What you got coming up this week?
Yeah, I said we've got it this week. Yeah, yeah. The
Yeah, but you
schedule's
didn't say-
over on. Oh, who? Who is kind of up in the air? I had to rearrange some scheduling. So
Oh, okay.
clovertac.com has all of the scheduling there, but next week there may be some finagling, so I'm not 100% sure. But it looks like at this point, it looks like it's going to be, and this is different than what it says on the website. It looks like it's going to be OST, Operator Survival Tool, and the Gun Snob. So for this next week.
Yeah, because I was going to say, I thought I seen 2 videos go up. I thought you were just not putting them up in a lump for the strategy. You're doing it because of scheduling still.
What do you mean?
Well, you only had posted 2 instead of like a big pile of them. Last
Oh,
season,
I've just been so No, it's no strategy. It's lazy or busy. Definitely no strategy. I've been busy and I haven't had time to get with the guest and nail down the time to be able to schedule.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so as the season progresses in the next couple of weeks, and probably not this week, but the following week, I will have, quite a few episodes, on the schedule or whatever. But if folks, again, if you don't see it on the main CloverTech YouTube channel, scheduled and ready to go, that doesn't mean it's not going to happen. Just jump on clovertech.com and I've got the entire list there. And I mean, you can set alarms in your phone or do whatever you want to do, or you can just watch or participate in a replay. The last couple of episodes, that's the only way you could do them anyway, because things kind of got screwed up. But uh, hopefully that's not the case moving forward. We can line those kinks out and get back to a normal way of doing things for us.
Right on. Well, live is real.
Oh, I just read one of the questions we didn't answer.
Oh,
What's the most 80s gun?
oh,
Calico.
that's a good answer.
Yeah.
Tech 22, Tech 9.
Tech 9's definitely Calico. Yeah. Those are just
Mac
The
10.
Beretta 92's up there.
It is.
True, but it transcended. I was just thinking about, it's 80s and
This is true. It did not die. Yeah. It didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The ones we talk about pretty much was spawned and died in the 80s. But yeah, iconic. Yeah.
Bryn 10.
Brent 10. Yep. Yeah, sorry, but I saw that and I was like, dude, we all got an answer for that. Yeah.
For sure.
Brent 10, Matt, all the Tech line, Tech 9, Tech 22.
Oh, the Mac stuff for sure.
Yeah, that was on the fringes. What was it, like 70s? But yeah, it was like, hey, nobody got one. The 18 Mini 14. Yeah, but again, mainly because it wasn't real. I mean, it was like manufactured, right? The folding stock thing and full auto thing wasn't even sold by Ruger to civilians.
Correct.
So I mean, it was it was pretty much the gun version of the General Lee.
But if you think of something that stayed in the 80s, the 14 lived on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did.
Good question.
And seen some pretty good heyday. Like one of the biggest things from Mini 14, if you get into some of the news footage and some of that from Waco. Oh my God, the amount of Mini 14s that were in Waco. It was unbelievable.
Really?
Yeah. Because that was shortly before state troopers here and rangers and stuff started flipping over to the M4s or M16s or whatever, right? And so there was a lot. My God, there was a lot of law enforcement walking around Waco with Mini 14s.
Well, you got to figure back in the days of the old Rangers, they didn't even need rifles. They just go in there and clobber the shit out of everybody. So it didn't really matter what rifle they had because they never used them.
Yeah, big revolver and just pistol whip everybody, right?
Yeah, just kill one Ranger, one riot, and knock the crap out of everybody, and then everybody calms down.
But you can't even lie, bro. That's 100% true. It's like Rangers still had lever actions going into the 90s.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They didn't care about their rifle. Like they only needed that occasionally for one shot, probably. Anyway, so that's a good question. Woods asked a lot of good questions. Thank you for that. Now we'll wrap it up. We're doing an off-air for people that are interested in the consulting, coaching type of stuff. We do those on Tuesdays and on Saturdays as well, occasionally. But thanks, everybody, for joining us. We will do a commercial here for our gear website store. If you're interested in supporting our projects, that's one way to do it. And we'll be back next week back onto the regular topic of answering gun questions. If you go to the website. You can ask questions. We don't harvest emails. It's not a weird funnel to get your email or anything like that. So just ask the questions. We'll answer them here from the perspective of guys that have been around guns for our lives and aren't trying to sell you nothing.
AskGunQuestions.com is a website that we built back in 2007, and since then, for the last 15 years, people have been able to ask questions of simple to advanced nature, and we attempt to answer.
And that's not the commercial, but I'll also mention Brooke is doing her suicide prevention show later on this afternoon. Encourage you to check that out, and then you'll be linked over to the overnight Foss's evening show. That'll happen later on tonight. Depending on your time zone, it'll be overnight, and they're talking about caliber versus capacity. The time-tested conversation, caliber versus capacity.
GearWebsites.com is your source for firearms-based playing cards and books. We also have mugs, shirts, and posters with designs that we've made live. Of course, we have patches. Every Friday is Free Patch Friday. We appreciate your support. Thank you for shopping at GearWebsites.com.